Is it on? Okay. Good morning, Mr. Anga and my classmates. Today I'm going to tell you about simple machines. These simple machines I'm going to tell you about have a greater output force than an input force. The ratio of these forces is the mechanical advantage of machine. All 6 of these machines have been used for thousands of years. The first one I'm going to tell you about is a screw. A screw is a shaft that has an inclined groove along its surface. By rotating the screw, the force is applied perpendicular to the groove, thus translating a rotational force into a linear one. It is frequently used to fasten objects together. A jar is an example because the lid tightens like a screw with the rigid ends. The next one I'm going to tell you about is the wheel and axle. A wheel is a circular device that is attached to a rigid bar in its center. A force applied to the wheel causes the axle to rotate, which can be used to magnify the force. Alternately, a force applied to provide rotation on the axle translate into rotation of a wheel. My example of a wheel and axle is my paper roll. When you pull on the paper, it rotates around an axle. This bar is the axle and this is the wheel. My next simple machine is a wedge. A wedge is a double inclined plane, both sides are inclined, that moves to exert a force along the lengths of sides. The force is perpendicular to the inclined surfaces, so it pushes 2 objects apart. My example is a knife cutting through food. When you push a knife through food, it makes it into smaller pieces. So when I push this knife through this cookie, it will cut it into 2 smaller pieces. Now it is in 2 smaller pieces. The next simple machine I'm going to tell you about is a lever. A lever is a simple machine that consists of a rigid object and a fulcrum. Applying a force to one end of the rigid object causes it to pivot about the fulcrum, causing a magnification of the force at another point along a rigid object. There are 3 classes of levers depending on where the input force, output force, and fulcrum are in relation to each other. My example of a lever is a toaster machine. The handle on the toaster is a lever. When you push it down, the wedge lowers, which turns on the toaster. Inclined plane is the next one I'm going to tell you about. An inclined plane is a plane surface that is set at an angle to another surface. This results in doing the same amount of work by applying the force over a longer distance. The most basic inclined plane is a ramp. The one I'm going to tell you an example about is the fan blades. As the fan blades spin around, they push air along their slanted surfaces, which makes a breeze. My last one I'm going to tell you about is a pulley. A pulley is a wheel with a groove along its edge, where a rope or cable can be placed. It uses the principle of applying force over a longer distance, and also the tension in a rope or cable, to reduce the magnitude of the necessary force. Complex systems of pulleys can be used to greatly reduce the force that must be applied initially to move an object. That's about all I have for you. on simple machines. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed.